Hello and welcome back to another episode of AZ Update. I'm Anthony Bartolo, joined as always by producer Pierre Roman. Pierre, how's it going?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. It's been a while. It's been a month since we've done the live show. We've had some of the smaller segments happen.
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Oh, we got a bit of an echo going.
I muted it.
We've had a couple of the smaller episodes going on during the week. What have you been up to for the month of July?
Took a little bit of time off. I had some family vacation or visits, and that's about it. It was pretty. It was nice to slow down for a bit. How about you?
Oh yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's the important piece is to take care of yourself. Everybody's been working hard, especially throughout everything that's going on, working from home. But you do still need to take a break. You still need to take time for yourself. Did a little bit of camping out southwest area, and just enjoyed the outdoors, which is really good to get outdoors, but to do it safely, of course. A lot of news still going on. We were reporting throughout the month of July, and we've been sharing that out. But there's more news that we're going to report on today. So without further ado, Pierre, did you want to get us started?
Sure. What are we talking about?
Great to have you back, Pierre.
No, just kidding. SMB configure SMB signing with confidence. So Ned put out this article that refers to how SMB signing works and how, well, first of all, it's not a new thing. It's been around since Windows 2000, Windows NT4, Windows 98. As he says in his blog post, it's actually old enough to drink. But it's a fairly complicated process to actually configure it and manage it. So he put this article up to kind of level set how you manage it, how you configure it, and it's so important because SMB signing means that every message that you send contains a signature generated from your session key and AES encryption, which means that at any point, if anything touches that message or changes the data in any way, that header won't match the signature, and then the SMB protocol will know that has been attacked with like a man-in-the-middle attack type of deal. And considering that a lot of cryptoware or crypto malware is using SMB to propagate itself, that's very, very important. So you put this article in that has all of the details on how you configure it, what registry keys to set, and so on, and policies to set in order to protect yourself better.
Oh, this is great. And that's the thing. A lot of people question the whole aspect of SMB and its implementation. I love the run through of the man of the middle attack and how it's eliminated in the use of SMB and for the encryption piece.
Because really, when you think about it, if you're still using SMB1 or like the original SMB, like you're asking for trouble. So turn that stuff off. I almost slipped. Turn that stuff off and make sure that you secure your environment, because it's hard to recover from those attacks.
Understanding how attacks occur is always important. I love the fact that it's detailed in terms of the use of SMB to stop those types of attacks, and that's what Ned has put forth. There's actually a full-on run-through in his article, so do check that out. There's also a tying video that we filmed with Ned, actually Sonia and Oren filmed with Ned, in terms of proper SMB implementation and considerations. And that's available on itopstock.com on the latest AZ Update article. It's an actual video run-through of the implementation of SMB, and then just questions being asked in that as well, which is really good.
Yep.
Shall we continue on with the news?
Absolutely.
So next up, have you dabbled in the use of SecretManagement?
I have.
Tell me a little bit about it. What have you done in SecretManagement?
Well, I did use for my environment. I got my own demo environment. I've got a whole bunch of servers that are typically shut down unless I need them. So I've got this whole kind of hybrid environment. I regularly try to change the password off of them, but I don't want to have to remember to go to each machine. So I do have a PowerShell script that. So I put the password in Key Vault,
Right.
and then I use PowerShell with SecretManagement to read it from Key Vault, stick it into a local repository or a secured repository local. And then go and update all of those machines with that password using PowerShell Remote. Now, SecretManagement in PowerShell, it does a lot more now because it has more providers. So one of the big things is that this time around, it has, for example, provider for LastPass. So if you've got a LastPass subscription and you've got all your passwords into that, then you don't have to start hard coding passwords into your scripts. And of course, it doesn't mean that your script will run unattended, because you actually need to bootstrap it. So you have to put in the first password to unlock the LastPass repository, and then it can read all the passwords in it. So it doesn't mean that it makes it completely unattended, but it does simplify a lot of things.
So the news that we're talking about here in terms of the use of SecretManagement is it's gone GA. So version 1.1 has finally gone GA. Includes a plethora of updates, including the constrained language mode made available inside of SecretManagement. I love the fact that there is the extensions made available for solutions like LastPass to use inside of SecretManagement, for that availability of, if you're already even invested in this password keeper, you can still harness the ability of SecretManagement to extract the passwords from tools like LastPass. And there are other tools as well, so do check the documentation made available on IT Ops Talk that will showcase, if you've invested in this, if you're using this current package or password manager, you can have the availability using SecretManagement to use those passwords as required.
Yep. No, it's really cool. Anything that simplifies the security of your scripts and your PowerShell modules, where you don't have to hard code anything or have easy guessable passwords, is a plus that we absolutely have to keep hammering on everybody who's writing it. Don't do it. Like not don't use the secret password module. I mean, don't hard code passwords.
Right. People are still doing that though. That's the scary thing, right? There's still organizations that are hard coding passwords.
Oh yeah. Or not just passwords. They're hard coding passwords. They're hard coding connection strings. They're hard coding a bunch of stuff, which has been a no-no for years. But it's the path of least resistance.
Right. Back in 1981, Canada's Wonderland opened its doors and is the largest amusement park that we have here in Canada. I was so excited to finally get on.
Isn't it the only one? Oh no, there's a lot on too.
No, there's a couple. There's a couple. Actually, there's one in Calgary too. I just learned of it's about the size of La Ronde. When was the last time you were at Wonderland?
I can't even remember.
In 1981, Wonderland had a handful of rides when it opened. One of them was the Royal Canadian Mindbuster, the mighty Canadian Mindbuster. And
blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. Have you've been on that ride though, right? The Canadian Mindbuster?
Nope.
No. So back in the early 80s, late 90s or mid 90s, great ride, smooth ride. And then it got rougher and rougher and over. It's a wooden roller coaster. It's an older roller coaster. They're talking about the retirement of the possible of the roller coaster because it's become so rough. And the reason I bring this up is because the next item on the news is the end of support for Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2. If, roller coasters being as old as they are, come to a point of retirement because of safety, the same type of consideration should be put into place when you're looking at your back-end infrastructure in terms of what you're trying to move forward with your organization. So Pierre, take it away.
Well, I like this is not new news. Like if you can
Right.
tell on the date in the post right now, it's like it was put there on July 14th. When you really think about it, when we retired 2008 and 2003 was the exact same story. We started talking about it like 2-3 years in advance. And then like a year to 6 months before we retired it, then all of a sudden enterprises and IT pros out in the wild started saying, "Oh my God, why didn't you tell me?" So I I wanted to make sure that we start talking about this now because it'll end in 2023.
Right.
So like 2 years, only 2 years. And it is in line with the Microsoft support lifecycle policy. And the lifecycle policy came about actually in the 90s, late 90s.
About the same time that the Mindbuster was still a good ride.
Yeah. But it was at that point, like let's say SMS was had its own lifecycle policy, and server had his own lifecycle, and like BizDoc server, like Exchange, like all of our products were at their support policies were dictated by the product group, and it became very, very confusing for enterprise administrators and IT pros and operations folks out there that are looking at that going, I have no idea when this piece of software is going to end, and it might end suddenly, it might end never. Nobody ever knew. So at the time, they made this policy where every commercial or enterprise grade software, so it doesn't apply to like Age of Empire or Halo,
Right.
but it does anything that's like enterprise grade. Take that with like the air quotes. Would follow this policy. 5 years of mainstream support, which means bug fixes, which means feature fixes or feature updates, which means security updates, which means like the whole gamut. Where we fully supported bumper to bumper. If this was a car, that would be a full warranty bumper to bumper, including consumables. But after 5 years, then you go into security updates only, and it's
Right.
up to 10 years. So it is predictable. So you know that all of your products, when you deploy them, you have got at least 10 years worth of usage, secure usage out of them. Now, after 10 years, the only way to keep support for those would be to, one, buy a custom support agreement, which are extremely expensive. And not everybody gets approved for it because you have to show that you have a plan to get off of the platform.
Right. Right.
And the other is if you migrate it to Azure, then you get an I think it's another 2 years of security support, which basically is just a way to say, okay, well, we're giving you 2 extra years for you to work on how to get off of that that platform, which is no longer supported. And 2012, my God, it's going to be almost 10 years. Like it's 2022 in a few months.
Right. Right.
It's time.
Well, there's still some organizations that are running 2003 and 2008. Right? Like if you look in the chat room, we have Andrew McCollum who's saying, yeah, there's organizations that are still running 2008. There was a good question that came in from Paul Jensen. Didn't I read that going forward, it's only going to be LTSC?
LTSC? Long-term support?
Long-term service contracts, I believe.
I don't know. They seem to change their mind fairly regularly in terms of what the programs are. So like that program where if you run it in Azure was there for, I think it was SQL, the last SQL that went out of support in the last server, which is 2008. Don't know how much uptake that's been, and you really have, when you get to those types of programs, you really have long-time services branch channels.
So instead of branch, it's channel.
Yeah.
And thank you.
I don't know. It might be going forward. It might be going forward from 2016 or from 2019. But 2012 and 2012 R2. really didn't have those channels. Anyway, so I to answer Andrew, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look it up, and to that effect, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to write it down.
And you're answering Paul. That was Paul's question, so we'll look into that.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Jared, aka Audio Guy Steve, makes mention of the fact that it's long-term
Steve,
service.
the audio guy.
Yes, Steve, the audio guy. It's been a while. I have to get back in the groove of calling him the appropriate name. Paul also makes mention that no more semi-annual channels, only long-term service. And Jared also liked my Mindbuster reference, saying that it was a great stretch to put that into the news segment. Next up in the news, Windows single sign-on for use on Azure Active Directory. This is an interesting one. This question comes up a lot. What is the difference between Active Directory and Azure Active Directory? Do they talk to each other? Why do I have to have my users sign on to two different authentication methodologies to gain access to the information that matters to my organization most? It's something that comes up a lot in a lot of conversations that we have. And so Sonia actually went out and did the full research in terms of, what does this actually mean? Why is there a difference between the two platforms? How can you invoke single sign-on so that your end users sign on once, authenticate once, and then gain access to the plethora of content and data and information that lets them move forward in regards to their day-to-day activities? I love this because it's going through, it talks about the inclusion of AzureAD Connect, which for those of you who are not aware, it's that solution that allows for the synchronization of your on-premises Active Directory objects into Azure Active Directory. Then you still have to invoke the single sign-on enablement functionality. There's the whole availability of the capability to then extend services, authenticating through the cloud to on-premises to gain access to information. And Sonia does a phenomenal job of going through this in regards to even fleshing out the actual sequence for the authentication, how that actually occurs between Azure AD and Active Directory as well. Also going through the primary refresh token enablement and what that actually is and how that's actually being enabled. So it's more than just a step-by-step course. It actually goes through and talks about the technology and how this actually comes into play for the adoption of single sign-on authentication through Azure Active Directory to Active Directory to gain access to those services.
Yeah, and it's also an evolution of the sessions that they recorded with Steve Seifus at our last IT Ops Talks All Things Hybrid event, which is available here on YouTube. So subscribe and hit the bell.
Wow. Yeah, the video is actually at the end, I believe, of the article. Yep, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. In Azure Active Directory and Microsoft Active Directory services or Windows Active Directory services, the only thing they really share is two words in the name, because they are completely different beasts. So Steve makes a great explanation of that and how they each work.
Fellow Canadian Steven Seifus. Yes. He does a phenomenal job of going through that. So definitely check out that video. Jared actually makes mention that he's been having issues with a machine that is Azure AD joined running scheduled tasks. I've heard that. It, in some instances, if you're running scheduled tasks, you may run into challenges. And you have to make sure that the Connect Azure AD Connect's sequencer happens to be, you might have to increase the refresh rate to ensure that the authentication is still allowed for those tasks. However, I was told that if you use Power Automate, and its authentication method actually will allow for, it negates the need for an increased sync for Azure AD Connect for automation of tasks. Something to check out. I've not tested it, but I've been told that is the case. Yeah,
I haven't looked at it either, but pencil, paper, I'm going to take a note.
Got a lot of notes today on today's show. It's
content fodder for the for our blog and for the other videos. So this is where I get my ideas, is from the audience. That's like, hey, I'm having this problem, so let me look into it.
So what's awesome is that we have those participating in the chat room. So today we have Andrew, we have Jared, we have Paul Jensen, So, definitely when you're talking on the show or when we're watching the show, having that collaboration and participation on the chat room is always invited. It allows us to, answer your questions as they come in and have chats. And I love when they have chats inside of the chat room as well, which is really good. Speaking of ideas and capturing ideas, Patch and Switch is on today as well. Later on today, I believe it's at noon Eastern Standard Time, which is another great show. You and Jared, or Audio Guy Steve, also
Steve,
have a
the
show.
audio guy.
Steve, the audio guy.
We're going to get you to remember that at one point.
I'm having one of those days. Also run testing and production. What is the differences between the shows? What is the differences between Patch and Switch and testing and production? Because you alternate dates, right?
Yeah. So they're every fourth night, and so we're the other fourth night. So they go on, we go on, they go on, we go on. Testing and production started out where Jared and I were discussing some of the issues they were having with sound, with streaming, with me producing this show, producing other shows, producing recording for our channel. So we started kind of like meeting ad hoc and discussing like how can we try stuff, and then we like maybe people would be interested in figuring out like how do you come up with content, how do you record, how do you broadcast, what type of equipment are needed, like just everything and anything that has to do with building content, whether it's for streamers, whether it's for you have to record a session for your own company, like a training session or a message that all of your employees are going to see. So we started that and we just said, oh, well, let's give it a try. So we had one episode and then another, and it's going well. We've got a pretty decent viewership, and the folks on the chat are very engaged. So they're giving us a lot of ideas for content to look at. I'm trying to like a scoop here, and Steve and I have Steve, the audio guy, and I have talked about this before. I'm trying to get a big name to come and talk to us about the differences with short bite content, such as TikTok and YouTube Shorts, versus longer term or longer type content, which is the type of stuff like a half hour, 45 minutes technical sessions. So I've tried to reach out to him. I'm in process of trying to get some time on his calendar of a big name. We're
Cool.
Trying
That's
to
exciting.
get. Hey,
that's exciting.
Yeah. So should be fun.
I like John. I like Jared's mention of the differentiator, saying that testing production has a plan.
Yes, because we actually have a production meeting 3 days before the actual show, where we're like, this is what we're going to talk about. This is what your end is going to be. This is what my end. It gives us time to, because a lot of times it's show and tell. Like, let me show you a live in production. I'm going to try this, right. But you have to have some kind of setup. You have to be prepared. So we make a plan.
Paul also reminded me that memory is always the first thing to go. Don't I know it? That's those states.
I thought it was the second thing to go.
I don't want to know what the first is.
I can't remember.
Sorry?
I can't remember.
Let's go to our Microsoft Learn module of the week, and tying into the news that we had in terms of SMB implementation, we have the Windows Server file servers and storage management learning path. So what I love about this is based on technologies for 2012 and 2016. This will be, earmarked to be updated for 2019, 2022. But it's a great way to start off your journey in terms of storage implementation practices from Windows Server itself. Again, what I always love about Microsoft Learn is the ability to do things in a sandbox. So you're actually doing hands-on labs on Azure in a Windows Server VM to go through and test out the functionality, utilization of deduplication, SMB integration, implement the iSCSI, all the great solutions made available for storage on Windows Server, all available on Microsoft Learn.
Yep. I love Microsoft Learn because there are different types of learners. There's my wife's a teacher. Can you tell? She's been like she driven that into my head, and it's good because it helps me in our job. Where there are some visual learner, there are some tactile learner. So you basically learn by reading, some learn by doing, some learn by watching. And this kind of like learn kind of gives you a bit of all three. So there's a description of what it is, and then there's an exercise that you get to touch and play, and then sometimes there's some little videos that are included in it in terms of the concepts, overlooking at the concept. So it's really a well-rounded way of learning the technologies.
I'm very much a hands-on learner. So what I appreciate about Microsoft Learn is those sandboxes I can go through and replicate the steps that are provided. It's something where I learn through muscle memory and understanding of the technology and going through and actually completing the tasks. It's like what we used to do back in the day when we used to do those hands-on labs across the country, and now it's in a virtualized plane, so you can spin it up at any time and learn at your leisure, which is really cool. Wow, where did the time go? Show's almost done.
Yep.
Producer Pierre, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
I have been and always shall be at Wired Canuck. How about you?
And as mentioned throughout the show, all articles for AzUpdate can be accessed on itopstock.com. There's also a quick URL that can get you there. It's aka.ms/AzUpdate. And if you want to get a hold of me for some reason, you can do so at Wireless Life on Twitter. I almost forgot my own Twitter tag. Wow, the memory's really going.
Yep.
All right. That's the end of the show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will see you all again next week. Have a great weekend.
See you later.
Thanks, Pierre. See you later.